All right, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be taking a look at the JBL Studio 630 bookshelf speakers. I bought these just to do the review. Too small of a channel to actually get, speakers sent to me. So subscribe. This is a very interesting line because they make so many speakers in this line. They have two bookshelf speakers. These are the 630s, which are the bigger of the two bookshelves, and they have the 620s, which are a 5¼ inch woofer instead of a 6½. They make two center channels, the 625C, which is the HDI waveguide compression dome tweeter with a 5¼ inch woofer on each side. And then they have the 665C, which is the same HDI waveguide tweeter and four 5¼ inch woofers, two on each side. And then they make three towers in this line. So the smallest is going to be the Studio 680, which is the dual 6½ inch woofer with HDI waveguide tweeter. And then there's the 690, which is dual 8s and the same tweeter. And then the 698s, which are the only three-way speakers in the line. I would really like to get those in for review someday because they're just big. I really like big speakers. When it comes to speakers, they're kind of like engines in my mind. There's no replacement for displacement. And those speakers are really large with dual 8-inch woofers, and then the 6½ inch mid-range, and then the 1-inch compression driver mated to the HDI waveguide. So that speaker probably kicks a lot of ass, especially for the price, because it's $1,700 for a pair, $850 each. And they are 43½ or so inches tall, and they weigh 79 pounds. Like that, those would probably be a lot of fun. And then they make the Studio 610 on-wall speakers. So if you're, doing surround sound, you can mount those speakers to the wall, and they have the same drivers as the 620s with the 5¼ inch woofer and the same tweeter. And then they make a ton, I'm not gonna go over every model because there's too many, but they make a ton of JBL Studio series in-wall and in-ceiling speakers. Oh, and then they also make two subwoofers for this line. There's the Studio 650P, which is a 10-inch, 250-watt sub, and then there's the Studio 660P, which is the 12-inch, 500-watt sub. So if you're trying to build out a home theater on like a reasonable budget, you're not trying to get like the absolute entry-level stuff like JBL's Stage Series speakers or Klipsch's reference speakers, but you don't, you're not trying to get up into the really high-end like, Bowers and Wilkins or Martin Logan's XT series or, Kef R series. You're not in that kind of price category. The JBLs are a pretty good, solid lineup. The only thing I believe that they are missing is I don't think they have an Atmos style speaker for these. I mean, obviously they have the in-ceiling ones, but not everybody can do in-ceilings. So having speakers like the Atmos toppers that either sit on top or mount up high on your wall, basically where the wall meets the ceiling. That way the sound shoots down at you, similar to like what you would get with an in-ceiling. That I don't believe they make that for this line, but that's the only speaker that's missing. So now that I'm done rambling about all the speakers that they make in this series, let's just go over the first, like the physical build of the speaker, starting with the grill. So the grill is pretty nice looking. It's, pretty much a standard grill with the black cloth and the cast plastic frame. You got 6 magnets that hold it into place that have the little felt protectors so you're not scuffing up the vinyl wrap on the speaker. And then you got a nice JBL logo here. This is a little bit nicer version of the JBL logo than what was on the Stage Series speakers. The JBL logo on the Stage Series speakers kind of reminded me of like sportswear, which actually kind of makes sense because I feel like they're trying to appeal to people in the millennial generation or younger with these Stage speakers. So they just printed the JBL logo on with rubber, kind of similar to what they do when they print the Under Armour logo on a pair of gym shorts. Like that's what those reminded me of. And I'm personally not a fan. I didn't think that looked particularly classy, but I'm sure that it's gonna appeal to the younger generation. So I'm gonna toss the grill aside for now. So now we can actually talk about the speaker. Right away up front, my favorite thing about the design is how clean this looks with these rounded corners in particular. And then they've got a nice trim ring around the woofer, so you don't have any visible driver or fasteners. I'll bring the speaker up a little closer. So no visible fasteners on around the woofer or around the tweeter. Nice logo again, same as what's on the grills. Then we've got, the 6.5-inch woofer here. It's all plastic. They call it polyplast, but plastic. One of the things that I'm not a big fan of is this looks a little bit old-fashioned to me, having the ridges still on the woofers. I'm sure that there's reasons why they do it for adding rigidity and breaking up resonances within the driver and stuff like that, but there are plenty of speaker companies that are building much higher end speakers that don't have those ridges, so they could probably get away from doing that too, and it would make the front of this speaker a little bit more attractive, I think. Then we've got the HDI waveguide here. It goes all the way out to these rounded corners, and it's very smooth. It looks nice. And then you got the 1-inch compression tweeter in the back there with a little mesh guard. That way, if you've got kids, they're not going to be able to poke their fingers into the tweeters and damage them. Although, if they're determined enough, they could probably poke right through that mesh and cause some damage. So just teach your kids early not to mess with your speakers is kind of my thing. And then let's rotate to the side where there's really not much going on other than you can see that the curvature of the speaker matches on the front and the back. So it's basically one big, rounded off speaker. Going around all the way to the back, pretty standard. You got your port here. And then this is one of the things that I'm a little bit disappointed with about the physical build of these speakers. These are not very impressive binding posts. It's funny because in my unboxing video, I thought that at first that these seemed like they're a little bit nicer than the ones that they used on the Stage series speakers. But then after using them for the past week and a half, I'm not super impressed with these mostly just because they're so small. It's probably kind of deceiving when you look at it in the video, but these are way smaller than normal binding posts. And if you use banana plugs, they're only going to go in to the receptacle there in the back of the binding post about 1/3 of the way. Your banana plugs just don't go in very far. So that's not gonna give you the best, most solid connection in the world. And it's a little bit of a danger because if you have your banana plug sticking up like this and anything happens that tugs on that cable at all, since it's just barely stuck in there and sticking out quite a ways, it could easily cause you to bend or break off your banana plugs. So I'm not a huge fan of that. And then the last thing that I'm not a huge fan of is just the vinyl wrap that they put on it in general. So the other thing that was really nice about the Stage series speakers is that vinyl wrap that they used was a very, very textured, 3-dimensional vinyl wrap. It could trick some people into thinking that it was a real wood grain veneer because there was so much wood texture going on. This is just a flat vinyl wrap. There's nothing going on here. Very basic, very pretty apparent that they didn't spend a lot of money on this vinyl that they put around the speaker. And there's even if you're being very, very nerdy about it, there's a couple of very minor flaws where the sides, the wrap on the sides meets the wrap on the top. You can actually, right here, you can kind of feel it. And if you weren't careful and you were picking at this, I'm doing right now, which I shouldn't do, you could start to probably peel up that wrap. Another thing that I do is on the very bottom of this speaker, this little like probably 3/8 of an inch. It's like some kind of a very hard plastic, like possibly like Teflon or something like that. Like gloss black plinth that they put on the bottom of the speaker that adds some weight to it and like adds a little bit of extra feeling of quality, especially when you like set the speaker down. It's like, it kind of adds to it. I'm sure it's not really doing much other than style, but I mean, it's a nice little solid extra piece on the bottom of the speaker. So yeah, it's overall, I would probably give this thing like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 as far as the actual physical design of the speaker. It's not amazing. I wish they had like a lighter finish, because they do make this in 2 different finishes. This is what they call the dark wood finish. And then they have another finish, this is called the wood finish, which isn't a whole lot lighter than this, at least in the pictures online. I haven't seen it in person. I really like the finishes, like the vinyl wraps that they put on the Stage series speakers. I wish that they had the espresso and latte finishes that were available on those. That would go a long ways to making these seem like a lot higher quality speaker, but these are much better cabinets, which I believe contributes a lot to their sound quality. So like on the Stage series speakers or other speakers in like this and lower price categories, when you tap on them, they sound very hollow. These sound pretty solid, which is good for cabinet resonances. Like the solidity of the cabinet combined with the curves means that there's not going to be as many standing waves that are going to be able to build up by bouncing back and forth between parallel surfaces inside of the speaker. And so that's going to add a little bit to how clean the like lower mid-range and bass is. So the cabinet design is good. I just wish they would have put a better vinyl wrap on it, better binding posts on the back, and then maybe get rid of these ridges. Like if they come out with a Studio 7 series, because this is the 6th gen like Studio 6 series, if they come out with a Studio 7 series, design-wise, those are the 3 things that I want to see changed. Like they could keep everything else, just get rid of these ridges, use the higher end vinyl wrap that they put on the Stage series, and some higher quality binding posts. And then the design on these would be like, you know, a 9 out of 10 versus right now, I'd say they're probably a good 6. So what did I use when I was testing these speakers? I have a few different things that I powered them with. I used mostly the Marantz Cinema 30 AV receiver with these just as the left and right speakers in my existing home theater. And then I also tested them in my bedroom using a Denon AVR X3500H. Also used them connected to a new amp that I actually picked up on AudioGone, the Class A Sigma Amp 5, which is a little bit overkill for these, especially because it's a 5-channel amp, but it's a 5-channel, 200 watt per channel amp that's, you know, from Class A, which is like a pretty high-end audiophile brand. And that I would say is the best sounding amp that I currently have here. And then for the front end, when I was using the Sigma Amp 5, sometimes I was using the pre-outs on the Marantz, and then other times I was using the RCA outputs on the SMSL SU1 DAC and using the WIM Mini Streamer and running the DAC and streamer off of a battery bank, so you get a really good linear power supply going into the streamer and the DAC, because that gives you a really good clean sound. But yeah, those are the systems that I actually powered the speakers with, and the best sound actually came from that Class A Sigma Amp 5 and the SMSL SU1 with the WIM streamer. And so what did I hear with these speakers? That took a little bit of time for me to actually like nail down exactly what I wanted to say about the sound of these speakers, because they're pretty good. They're not totally neutral, They have a few little minor issues, but overall for a $700 speaker, I think they're really good. The bass, the manufacturer rates the bass to go down to 45 hertz. I think they start to roll off pretty quickly, right at about 50. So you get good punchy mid bass and like upper bass, like 50 to 100, 50 to 120, like good punchy like upper bass, and then the mid bass in that like 120 to like 200, 300 hertz range is very good and punchy. Like it's actually pretty strong. No port chuffing, nothing like that comes out of the back of the speakers, and no mechanical like noises coming from the woofer. Below 50 hertz, they roll off quickly and cleanly, so you're not getting any like sounds where the woofer is misbehaving when you're trying to play frequencies lower than what the woofer can do. Like you could see it moving and just not really hear much, because down below 50 hertz, they can't couple to the air well enough to create a lot of sound that you can actually use below 50 hertz. So if you want full range, you're gonna need to add a subwoofer. That's basically a universal thing with bookshelf speakers. There's like a couple of exceptions, but they're usually pretty high-end, expensive bookshelf speakers to be able to use them as full range speakers without a subwoofer. The one thing that's not great with these is kind of their mid-range still. It's not as bad as the Stage series speakers. Like when I was listening to those Stage series speakers, if you watch my review on those, I thought that they essentially were just way too shouty in the mid-range, particularly listening to the song Island in the Sun by Weezer. They were very aggressive, like the treble was just so loud that in comparison to how loud the rest of the song was, the electric guitars in that song were so loud and shouty that I had to turn them down. I'm very happy to report that that was not an issue on these, so it's not just an overall JBL thing. The mid-range on these, what I could hear, I don't have any measuring equipment yet, so I'm just going off of what I could hear, but it sounded like there was a dip in the like lower mid-range, like in the couple hundreds of hertz range, followed by a little bit of a rise in the upper mid-range. So I want to say around 400 or 500 hertz, it dips down a little bit. So particularly what that resulted in was like male vocals, and then also when watching like TV shows or movies where there's a male speaking a lot, they sound a little bit more recessed. Not like so much that it's hard to understand or anything like that, but it almost sounds like the vocalist took like a step away from the microphone. And then there's a little bit of a rise in the upper mid-range. So lower female voices or higher male voices are very clean and clear and like a little bit forward, not enough to where you would say it's a bad sound. It's just a little bit more forward than what would be a completely neutral sound. So the mid-range is going to be still like the weakest point for JBL, but not nearly as bad as it was on the Stage series speakers. And then as far as the treble goes, the treble is actually really good. It's really clean. It doesn't get sibilant at all. Like there's a specific track that I listened to. I can't remember the name of the artist, but it's Where I Was, I believe is the name of the song. Maybe if I remember, I'll put up a screenshot showing like the album and stuff like that. But it's a little bit of a brighter, like more sibilant recording. So I use that to see if a speaker is going to get sibilant enough to where it's not pleasant to listen to. And these didn't have that issue at all. So that was really good news as well. And yeah, they go high enough to where you can hear the air projected out of the room, out of these HDI waveguides. So that was a big positive for these. I think that by comparison, I didn't really notice it as much when I was listening to the Stage series speakers, But when I got the Studio series in comparison to the Stage, the treble is a lot better. I thought that it was okay on the Stage series speakers, but in comparison, these play a lot cleaner and higher in the treble as well. So that was a big positive for these. Overall, I would say that these have a warmer, more full-bodied sound than most speakers in this price range, which gives them a much higher end sound. Like they sound like speakers that are a little bit more expensive than what these are, in comparison to something like the Klipsch RP600M. I was going to do like a big comparison between these two in this video, but then when I started basically outlining what I was going to say, I decided that's going to just be a separate video. So if you want to hear what I think between the Studio 630s and the Klipsch RP600M2s, then you'll have to subscribe and turn on notifications so you could see when I put out that video. But for now, yeah, that's going to be a separate video. Just going to try to talk mostly about these. Other aspect to sound quality that was pretty good with these, and it's actually my favorite aspect of sound quality, is like soundstage and imaging. Like in my mind, sound speakers that have basically like no soundstage and can't produce an image, I have no interest in those. You could give me the most neutral, like perfect frequency response speakers on the market, and I really couldn't care less about them if they don't image. These do a pretty good job. The HDI waveguide, the high definition imaging waveguide, is doing its job here. You get a very wide sound stage. I'm gonna rip this off from Randy, the cheap audio man, but Chocolate Chip Trip by Tool, where it's making that weird sound that just kind of pans back and forth, sounds essentially like it's going 180 degrees in front of you from these speakers. So the HDI waveguide does a pretty good job on these. The one thing with the imaging that I kind of had a hard time with, I tried a lot of different things, moving them closer to the front wall, moving them further away from the front wall, towing them in, towing them out, bringing them closer together. I couldn't get a perfect, like locked in center image. There's certain tracks that I use when I'm testing a speaker where I know, like on my Canton Vento 896.2s, which I essentially use as my reference speakers because they are really, really good, high-end, very neutral speakers. Those things like image so well. Another song, I can't remember the name of the artist, but the title of the song is Dreamsicle in particular. The imaging in that song is great, and there should be a very, very good, like locked in center image where it sounds like the singer is, I mean, essentially, you know, usually when I'm listening, everything is set up in a home theater setup, but when I'm listening to 2-channel music, a song like that, the singer sounds like he's coming from the center channel, even though the center channel is not playing anything, because that's how good the imaging is on those speakers. Didn't really get that effect that well with these. These are kind of more of a diffuse sound, wall of sound type of speaker, which is surprising. I'm wondering if they are going to come out with a pair or with a set of JBL Studio 7s in the future, because the Stage series speakers, I think, actually did a little bit better of a job of that center imaging. This is pretty much the only thing that they did better, other than, you know, having the nicer veneer. But yeah, I have a feeling that I believe they called it the next gen HDI waveguide on those speakers, is going to move its way up to these when they refresh these. But these have only been out for a year now, so they'll probably, you know, be at least another 2 or 3 years till they replace these. So yeah, that's pretty much my impression of the sound. To put it much more quickly and concisely, use a subwoofer if you want bass lower than 50 hertz. Mid-range isn't perfect, but for a speaker in this price category, it's probably going to be one of the better ones anyways. And then Treble is a strong suit, and imaging is pretty good. It gives you that wide image soundstage. So, what are my final thoughts? So overall, I would say that these speakers are deserving of a recommendation. At their price point, compared to other speakers that are in a similar price category, I'm sure that they're going to be some of the better contenders for your money. The fact that they give you that nice warm, like higher end sound and that good imaging, I know for a fact it used to be a much more rare thing in this price category. In comparison to other speakers in this price category, I'm going to definitely be doing a direct comparison between these and the RP600Ms. I mean, I've already done that, so I know exactly how it sounds in my head. I just haven't been able to put together exactly what I'm going to say in the video yet. And then I'm planning to do a comparison with these against the new ELAC debut 6.3s. So the third generation ELAC debut series speakers with the 6.5-inch woofers, and the new, I believe it's an aluminum dome tweeter, which is the first for the ELAC debut series. And I have those ordered on the website. I ordered them the day that they started accepting orders for them. It didn't say anything on the website, it just said add to cart, but it looks like that was kind of a pre-order type situation because I haven't had any shipping information yet, even though it's been like over 2 weeks since I placed that order. So I sent an email off to ELAC asking about my order and letting them know that I want to get them in for a review as soon as possible. And somebody at ELAC said that they are forwarding my information up the chain, so I'm hoping that I can hear back from them pretty soon. And then after I get those in and reviewed, the next speakers that I'm going to be picking up for a review are going to be the Martin Logan Motion Foundation B2 bookshelf speakers. Those are another $100 over the price of these, so those are $800 for a pair for the 6.5-inch woofer and the AMT tweeter based bookshelf speakers from them. So we'll see how those things compare. One thing that's super interesting that I noted about those is they're a lot lighter. Like the Klipsch is an 18-pound speaker. This is a 20-pound speaker. The Martin Logans are only 11 pounds. I'm wondering if they cheaped out on the cabinets so much that we're going to hear lots of cabinet resonances. We'll see how that goes once I get those speakers in. But yeah, for now, just going back to these guys, I would say that they're a good recommendation. I would say sound quality and build-wise, they look good, they sound good. So if you have been looking at these and wondering if they're any good and you wanted to see if you should pick them up, I would say that it's not a bad option at all and that you could go ahead and pick them up. But yeah, if you aren't in a hurry, I would wait for those other 2 videos to see the other speakers in this. I mean, obviously the ELACs are a lot cheaper. They're $450 for a pair. So, not necessarily in this price category. I would say, the Klipsch RP600Ms at $650, these at $700, and then the Martin Logans at $800 for a pair. Those are all speakers that you could be cross-shopping right now in that same category. So next Friday, I'll be putting out the video where I'm comparing these to the Klipsch's, and then hopefully the Friday after that, hopefully by then I'll have the ELACs in. So. And then it'll be after that when I do the Martin Logan. So if you're not in a hurry, wait for all those comparison videos to come out. And I may be trying to figure out a good way to do sound demos between the 2 speakers. Because when I was doing the comparison between the RP600Ms and these, I actually hooked both speakers up to my Marantz Cinema 30 and I set the JBLs up as speaker A and the Klipsch is a speaker B, so I could literally be sitting there listening to the same song and hit a button on my phone and have it switch from JBLs to Klipsch's and switch back and forth to do a direct comparison. And I'm going to be doing that with all of the speakers that I get in, because the only way you could really tell the differences immediately between two speakers is by switching back and forth instantly like that, because otherwise you start to forget like the differences and what things sounded like very quickly. So direct comparisons like that are the best way to do it. So if you want to see those videos, you want to help me grow this channel so I don't have to buy these speakers out of pocket, subscribe, try to get other people to subscribe, share the videos around. I got to start looking at growing my social media presence, even though I'm not really much of a social media person, just so I can try to grow this channel. Because yeah, I don't want to keep having to buy the speakers out of pocket, especially because like the last ones I reviewed, the JBL Stage 250Bs, I returned those because I didn't like them enough. These I'm probably going to be keeping because they are a good enough speaker that I think that they're worth keeping. So yeah, get subscribed to the channel, like the video, leave a comment on the video. If you watched all the way to the end, leave a comment just saying something about keep them or return them, and maybe leave me a little bit of a story about when you returned something because you didn't like it or it didn't work properly. Like that way we can get some engagement on the channel as well, and that'll help you know, drive or help motivate manufacturers to send me speakers for review and other things too. I would like to be able to get into reviewing other gear as well, like receivers, amps, streamers, all that good stuff as well. So yeah, that's all I really have to say today. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.